Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here. And in this video, I want to look at the chart. Oh, Charles Dickens, famous novelist, British novelist. The best of times, the worst of times. You know that guy. Guys, don't forget to hit the like button and please subscribe if you have not already. And I'm starting a class, a Sunday series, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Eastern America, Philadelphia. And just hit me up on email if you want to be a part of it. It's I'm asking $15 if you can afford it. If not, then $10. And if not, just let me know your situation and come on anyway. So I will be doing it this Sunday, the 25th. I know a lot of people are busy, so no worries if you have plans already. But if you want to join, I'll be here. And otherwise, the Sunday following. Not sure of the date yet, but just hit me up. Let me know. All right. I'm going to share the screen. Charles Dickens. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Hold on. Not sure why my there. Hold on. He was an English writer and social critic, created some of the world's best-known fictional characters, and is regarded by many as the greatest novelist of the Victorian era. Interestingly, he's born very similar time to Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman was American, and American poet, and he is a British novelist. And both of them widely renowned and hugely successful. So, in any case. Very different characters, but some similarities, I guess. His works enjoyed unprecedented popularity during his lifetime, and by the 20th century, critics and scholars had recognized him as a literary genius. His novels and short stories are widely read today. I don't know if you've ever tried to read a Charles Dickens novel. I did. Not easy reading. Like, you really have to be a literary scholar, I guess, or just somebody who absolutely loves reading. And I don't. I'll just be honest with you, I don't. It requires too much effort for me, and it's not something that I absolutely love. And so it's like, oh my God. Plus the old school British language is really, really tough. I mean, he expresses that language so well in his writing, and he really puts it all out there on display. And if you don't know what he's talking about, if you're not familiar with the old poor British accent, the way their linguistics, then it's tough reading. It's tough. Okay. He left school at the age of 12 to work in boot blacking factory, where when his father was incarcerated in a debtor's prison. That doesn't sound very nice. He returned to school. He began a literary career as a journalist. He edited a weekly journal for 20 years, wrote 15 novels, 5 novellas, hundreds of short stories and nonfiction articles, lectured and performed readings extensively, was an indefatigable letter writer, and campaigned vigorously for children's rights, for education and other social reforms. He began his literary success began with the serial publications of the Pickwick Papers, publishing phenomenon, thanks largely to the introduction of the character Samuel in the 4th episode. He, within a few years, became an international celebrity, famous for his humor, satire, and keen observation of character and society. His novels, most of them published. Okay, I'm just not gonna read this word for word. So, okay, he pioneered a serial publication of narrative fiction. It became the dominant Victorian mode for novel publication. So it's like, yeah, obviously serial publications, and with cliffhanger endings. and he would read the response of his audience and then modify the characters based on how people were reacting. His plots were carefully constructed. A Christmas Carol remains especially popular. Oliver Twist, Great Expectations, and A Tale of Two Cities. 'Twas the best of times and the worst of times. Such a difficult read, at least for me. Maybe if you're, British, it would be a bit easier to understand everything that they're talking about. But I don't know. I get lost in those old school books because a lot of the language is just very difficult. All right. Born in England. Let's see. He was very avid reader when he was young, and born very poor, obviously. And he worked in a factory at the age of 12, blacking boots. Sounds fun, right? For a 12-year-old. I can just imagine my son, who's actually almost 14, doing that. I can't at all. I'm joking. But luckily we don't live in that, at least in America. I know there's child labor in other countries, but we don't do that with our kids. Thankfully, we do other horrible things, but not that. And that formed a lot of his themes for his later novels. Working in this factory when he was young, the poor socioeconomic and labor conditions. Yeah. Poor working class Brit. That seems to be a theme. So he got into journalism and then started writing novels. And we're just going to speed through this. Let's see. Seymour committed suicide. So I don't know who Seymour is, but somebody he was friends with committed suicide. Okay, that's important because that's a theme, an astrological theme for him. Comic genius. Okay, this is also important. He married, and his wife's sister came to live with him. Catherine's 17-year-old sister, Mary Hogarth, lived with him, who he loved. I mean, he loved his wife, but he also loved, not romantically, just he thought she was a good person, I guess, and cared for her like family. He became very attached to her, and she died in his arms after a brief illness in 1837. You'll see in the Astrology that's pertinent, it relates. And it was a shock for him, and he stopped working, and he became depressed, and he couldn't write for a while, and very important point for him. Okay. What else? Oliver Twist. This is the United States. He was literary. He was a critic, social critic, philanthropy, religious views. He had a mixed religious view. Like, he was Christian, but he was also very critical of Christianity and the church. Let's see. And he was successful in his life. And I'm just going to speed through it, obviously. Tale of Two Cities, Great Expectations, and so he became a great novelist. Okay. Long story short. And he gave a lot of readings, and then he died. What else? social commentary. There's a lot of social commentary in his novels about, the poor working class. Obviously, that was important to him. And the rest is history. Okay. Sixth house Aquarius, conjunct Chiron, Sun. Sixth house Aquarius, Sun. Okay, so obviously for the social critique, obviously Aquarius is very important. We would look to Aquarius for any sort of Aquarius, 11th house, Uranus. These would all bring the socio-political mindset, because they're thinking about society, they're thinking about groups, networks, equality, the individuality within the group, the utopian civilization. That's Aquarian, right? That's all Aquarius themes of Aquarius. So, and sixth house is great for any sort of academia type work, just knows the grindstone, getting down, writing, editing. It's a very hardworking house, also very competitive. I'm not sure competition played very much, but these people they want to work. They're very smart, very intellectual, very academic, right? So social critic, academic critic, not like editing, writing, all of it, because it's it has a Virgo energy vibe to it as well. So a lot of intellectualism is coming from this combination. And the Sun conjunct Chiron not only kind of makes him feel quite like an outcast, a different, strange, odd, like rejected. And when he was 12 years old working in the factory, then his father was in debtor's prison, he did feel rejected, right? That's being rejected. His mother died at some point, but yeah, so stuff like that. I mean, obviously that's going to play a huge role, have a huge influence on his life. But Chiron also has a strong connection to fiction, because it's such a weird planet. It's not a planet at all. It defies classification. In fact, it's in between an asteroid and a comet, right? And it's this weird rock in the sky that orbits between Saturn and Uranus. So it does have a strong correlation to fiction, science fiction, even at times, kind of this nerdy intellectuality, stuff like that. And a very strong connection to the down and out, the wounded, the rejected, the homeless, the poor, the minorities. So he feels like one of them, and he's going to write about them, and that's going to be a huge theme for him. And it was, right? Always writing about the working class, the poor, the down and out, the wounded, the dregs of society, the underwear of society, that sort of thing. Right. Chiron has a really nice trine to Jupiter, right? And if Jupiter's in the 10th house, then that's going to be a strong indication of career success, especially in the person's lifetime. Like if you watch Walt Whitman, he had Jupiter in the 11th house, and he didn't have that much success during his lifetime, only after. That's more 11th house. But Dickens had great success during his lifetime. So that's Jupiter in Gemini, a very literary sign, right? Jupiter is not dignified in Gemini, but for writing, it's great, right? So that's really, a good indicator of some sort of, this alone, I would say some sort of academic type success, career success for sure. Sun is ruling the 12th house, so very creative influence, pulling into the 6th house, creative academics, fictional type stuff, career success, literary success. Yeah, that's very prominent already. And Moon conjunct Neptune in Sagittarius, and that's brilliant for sort of this very big imagination. His mind is constantly going towards fantasy and fiction and the mystical, just dreaming all the time from a young age, because fourth house is where we not only it's our roots, where we grow up with, but where we have both moon and heart represent a similar thing. Moon and fourth house represent heart, right? So it's what we love, where we're moved, what we're moved by, what we need for our emotional satisfaction and fulfillment. So he's a dreamer, right? Neptune in Sag has a very Piscean feel, because Neptune and Jupiter together co-rule Pisces. So a lot of imagination with Neptune in Sag, and this is a previous revolution to, and don't ask me how long Neptune takes to traverse the zodiac. I can't remember, first of all, but it's a while. And in any case, I was born with Neptune and Sag, and that's when Star Wars came out. So you can think of like Neptune and Sag. I always think of Neptune and Sag as the Star Wars conjunction, the Star Wars transit, because it has that quality. Neptune rules the creative side of things, the stories, the fiction, the fantasy, and Sagittarius is the great adventure, right? It's philosophy and religion, but like the travel, and Neptune and Sag is all about like the huge adventure, right? Into space or wherever it is, It's also like rock and roll and hair bands and stuff like that. But this is a very, very creative combination, in other words. And Jupiter is still opposite, even though it's not by degree. Jupiter rules Sag, and it's in the opposite house. And so it is still pulling in there. Neptune and Jupiter, I think, go quite well together. They co-rule Pisces. So together, I mean, very wide togetherness, we'll say that. Not as wide as it can be, but still pretty wide. But still influencing is what I'm trying to get at, especially because they're harmonious. They're pulling on each other, right? They're drawing on each other, as well as Moon and Jupiter. Moon and Jupiter are excellent companions. Jupiter is exalted in Moon's sign of Cancer, and Moon just generally loves Jupiter's influence as well. So yeah, this fourth house is very strong and gives a lot of, even though I should say it has different elements, because Jupiter being in detriment in Gemini in the 10th house kind of indicates that he was brought to make work at a young age, right? Because here's him like blackening boots in the factory at a young age. Not a very good thing for a boy, and that's probably because Jupiter is not such in good dignity here in Gemini. But generally, for ability to be creative and to have a moving element, a very emotional quality to his artistry, this Moon Neptune in Sagittarius in the 4th house, that's very strong. It's very prominent. And there's a wide square to Pluto and Venus, and that's Venus is exalted here in Pisces, but it's conjunct Pluto, and so like the death of friends, the death of people he loves, and in a very compassionate, having a very compassionate element, like, because Venus in Pisces is like that all-embracing love, right? And then Pluto's death, and the 7th house is personal relationships. So like a person committed suicide, the young girl, the sister of his wife died in his arms. So there's this element that's going to come through of this death of this very deep, profound kind of love. And that's square his moon, and it's going to have a deep destructive impact. It's going to be like very depressing for him, right? I think his mother died young as well. So that's moon square Pluto, and his moon is very sensitive conjunct Neptune. It creates a very like expansive mind that's prone to mental illness and delusion and deception and fantasy. Luckily, Saturn's in Capricorn, but moon also is ruling the 11th house. So again, very, very moved by social issues. 11th house would be groups, networks, and social, political, social, kind of elements, qualities, factors. So these are close to home for him. Like anything that's, social criticisms, he's going to feel that. It's going to be a very emotional factor in his work and in his writing, especially because Sun in Aquarius, Chiron in Aquarius as well. Uranus in the 3rd house, exalted in Scorpio. He's got a lot of very strong planets. Right, Uranus brings in the Aquarian 11th house themes as well, socio-political factors. Also great independence and shocking, brilliant kind of intellect. An exalted Uranus in the 3rd house. Sextile Mercury. I mean, this guy has, there's not a single planet that's like takes the cake, but it's this combination of so many different factors that are really, really strong. That's why Charles Dickens is so famous and considered such a, one of the greatest novelists of all time. I've read actually that under Shakespeare, according to some, Shakespeare is number 1, Dickens number 2, as far as greatest authors of all time, writers of all time. Different people have different opinions, so take that for what it's worth. It is subjective. There's no objective truth to this. It's not like he is definitively the 2nd greatest writer of all time. No, none of that. Different people will have different ratings about this, different ideas, but according to some, he takes number 2 on the list of all-time greatest writers. And then this exalted Uranus is strongly sextile this Mercury. Mercury is the ascendant Lord Virgo, so he's very critical naturally. Virgo ascendant, very literary, very analytical, right? And Virgo is going to create that very, very firm kind of writing style, the kind of perfectionism. It's not the only factor, but it's going to help with that a lot. And if you read some of his work, you'll understand what I mean. It's like it's labor just reading it, especially for me as an American. It's like, oh my God, I need a translator. I need somebody to help me out, figure out what the heck he's saying. I was more of a I like reading and writing, but I was more of a math science guy. That's where my sort of intellectual facilities lean towards, more on that side of things. Even though I'm a Gemini, Virgo moon, something about I don't know, probably Jupiter, Taurus, stuff like that. It's not my strongest suit. Even though I like writing and I'm a good writer, I'm not like an academic writer. I'm a very relaxed kind of writer. And when I come across these extremely tight, heavy, kind of laborious writers who just it's like I don't know, they're like heavyweight writers, I just get lost. Anyways, Uranus sextile Mercury's in Capricorn. It's that Capricorn. I mean, Saturn conjunct Mercury, it's wide conjunction, but it's still influenced. Saturn is in Capricorn, so Saturn is so strong, such a strong Saturn. it's, Saturn in Capricorn can endure any hardship, right? And his ascendant lord is Mercury. So this is like, Oliver Twist, can I please have some more, sir? Like the starving child up against the cruel authoritarian master. This is him. So this is his identity. Mercury in Capricorn is okay, but Saturn in Capricorn is at home. So he's like, up against this cruel, master authority. He's got like the ruler is gonna, beat you, or a whip or something, like wooden spoon, smack you, right? And you're just gonna learn by the hard school of hard knocks with this combination. It's well in the 5th house, especially Mercury. Mercury's trine the ascendant, and that's quite good, quite strong, because Mercury rules Virgo, and it's the trine, by 4 degrees, 5th house, so excellent for creativity and concern with children, right? A lot of his books have featured children, like Oliver Twist, and I don't know all the other ones, but the brilliance is this sextile. Mercury rules the sextile, right? Gemini rules the sextile, right? Third from the third from Aries, third from Leo. Anyway, sextile, and Mercury sextile Uranus is brilliant. And this Uranus is in the 3rd house, and it's exalted. And this Mercury also gains strength by the trine to the ascendant and the wide conjunction to Saturn in domicile in Capricorn. Saturn dispositing the sun in Chiron, ruling the 5th and 6th house. So the 5th house of creativity, the 6th house of nose to the grindstone, working hard, editing, writing, doing all the work stuff, mundane, daily routines, right? Get writing. That's very much 6th house kind of thing as it relates to writing. But yeah, like very, very brilliant, very extremely imaginative. Like he was just born to write fictional novels. I mean, are you kidding me? South Node Venus in Pisces. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Venus in Pisces is highly creative and highly loving too. Venus in Pisces wants to love everyone, right? Because Pisces is all embracing. It has no boundaries. Venus is the romance. 7th house is all about other people. This guy loves everyone, right? Maybe in difficult ways. Pluto is here. Saturn in Capricorn is quite strict. Mercury in Capricorn. So I'm not saying he's like, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but he has a very strong love, compassion, feeling for other people. South Node Venus is a natal, inherent creativity. He was born with this Venusian kind of ability to love and to be creative. Venus is ruling the 2nd house and the 9th house. So the 2nd house, giving body to his art form, sensuality, creativity, a voice. Right? 2nd house is that fullness, the bread of life, the food, the nourishment, the security. Yeah, and it's for a writer, we often think when we think of voice, we often think the spoken voice. Yes, there is that, but there's also the voice in writing. When you write, you need a voice. You have a voice, otherwise you're just writing. If it's pure 3rd house, it's kind of like journalism. But even journalists have voices, but like the very pure journalism would be just a very pure Gemini flavor, right? Where it's not, there's a neutrality in journalism, but in novels, right, then you're bringing in a very sensual, creative, artistic element. And for that, 2nd house, Taurus, Venus strongly comes into play. And so this exalted Venus ruling the 2nd and 9th is bringing in that sensuality, that full-bodied creativity. And then the 9th house, the philosophical, religious element, which is weird because Jupiter, again, even though it's bringing success, literary success, it's not Jupiter also ruling the sort of philosophical religious elements. It's in detriment here in Gemini. So he does, and his religious relationship is kind of mixed. Yeah, he's a Christian and he's a believer and all that, but at the same time he's very critical of religion, and it was kind of mixed. It was it's interesting because ninth lord is exalted, conjunct South Node, but at the same time Jupiter's in detriment. So this kind of mixed bag with religion, in regards to religion and philosophy. But yeah, and then the Pluto is going to make his feelings very, very deep and intense and psychological. It's going to give him a lot of depth to his characters as well, right? Because now when he's thinking about other people, he's bringing in a very deep psychological element, a very Piscean Pluto, because Pluto rules Scorpio, which is water. So there's already a water flavor, water element to Pluto. So it's a very, very deep, creative, psychological, loving, Pluto and Venus together is that the death of somebody you love with all your heart. What I mean? It's like this incredible drama, incredibly dramatic, deeply, powerfully dramatic. And I think that's one of the things that he's bringing to his novels, is this really intense drama where you're just like, you fall in love with the character and then they die or they go through some extreme hardship, and it's just like, heart-wrenching, right? It makes you want to cry or just like give up or fall over or something. It brings out all the feels, right? Deep, intense feeling. And that's very natal to him. It's very inherent. It's very natural and easy for him to go there, to be like totally dramatic and fantasy and deep and intense and like hardship and brutal pain, love and anguish, and oh my gosh. And the square to moon and Neptune and Sagittarius, oh my gosh. It's like so dramatic, right? So dramatic. The square is going to make it even more difficult, like it's not, and we want that. We, especially for a novel, like we don't want it to be easy. We don't want it to be all fun and fairy tale and unicorns and rainbows and everything is just peachy nonsense. It's just like, you throw it away. It's garbage. You need that tension, you need that hardship, you need the drama, you need to challenge you. A good novel, a good story needs to challenge the reader. So there needs to be this hardship, the death of the one you love the most, right? The love of your life dies in your arms and you're just like, crushed, soul crushed. Right? And then we get this powerful Mars in Aries, 7th quadrant, 8th whole sign house. And that's very, very deep, intense virility, sexuality, potency. Mars in Aries in the 8th house is like this deep feeling, but it's also very secretive. And there's a lot of hidden things that we're not getting from this Mars ruling the 8th house cusp, because eighth lord in the 8th house is so deep and intimate it doesn't come out, because the only way the secrets of the 8th house come out is when the 8th lord is in a visible house. That's why when I have my 8th lord in the 7th house, that's why I tell all my secrets, right? Probably don't want to tell me any secrets because I will make a video about it. And so I like exposing all the secrets, right? That's why I talk about astrology and stuff like that, and like occultism and like all the Illuminati stuff. But he likes to keep his secrets, and he likes to go be very, very deep and internalized, and no doubt there was some very, very potent sexuality for this man, for Charles Dickens, with a funny last name that evokes sexuality. Charles Dick, Charles Dickens. Any case, yeah, so there's a lot of mystery about Charles Dickens that we'll probably never know. He's dead. But this is the sort of thing that he's only going to reveal to the most intimate loved one, like his wife or his best friend or somebody. Like, you'll just be like, hey buddy, I got a secret. I got a deep secret, and you can't tell anyone or I'm gonna have to kill you. But this is what it is, and we'll never know. So he probably died with a lot of secrets. But Mars is also ruling the third house. So writing, third house of writing is exalted, and the eighth house is in not exalted, sorry, domicile. Third house lord is well, both. If Pluto is co-ruler of Scorpio, if we take that to be a co-ruler, Pluto is conjunct and exalted Venus, and Mars is in domicile in Aries in the eighth house. So third in the eighth. So it's going, his writing is going very deep, very intense, very intimate, right? The eighth house is where we go very, very close with someone, right? And that makes for good drama, because now you're getting like really, really intense. Character development is going so deep, so full, so full circle. We're getting the complete array, the deep like details and intensity. And this Mars still has some seventh house influence, so some of it is coming out. Some of that depth, that really deep, strong. And Mars in Aries is going to be very fiery, very passionate, very strong and forceful and aggressive. So there's going to be this a really, really, fiery, passionate element to his work. That's also very, very deep, intense, and bringing in elements of death and sex and darkness and all this gritty, raw, elemental stuff. Survival and life and death scenarios, and then it's also sesquisquare to Uranus, so the sesquisquare is a square and a half, so adding even more intensity. And they're both, and then Mars rules Scorpio, so that's good in a way, but it's a very dramatic connection with Uranus, exalted Uranus, Mars in domicile, sesquisquare, third and eighth house. So that's like, something that butts heads, like, you could almost say like two people who are enemies, both very powerful, very dynamic, and then who eventually learn how to work together. So it's like this dramatic relationship that concludes in a satisfying way, because Mars rules Scorpio. So eventually they get along, but initially they explode, right, against each other with like real like Mars and Aries and Uranus and Scorpio. That's pretty. That's like the unstoppable force and the immovable object kind of thing. Very dramatic, extremely dramatic. So you can see like how intense his chart is. I mean, it's all over the place. It's like, for drama, for creativity, for writing, it's fantastic, right? And career success. I mean, Jupiter's still Jupiter. It's not going to be successful for everything, Jupiter and Gemini, but for Gemini things, yes, Gemini things are writing, speaking, expressing, things like that. There does seem to be a quintile between the North Node and Jupiter. And quintile is a creative aspect. Quintile means 5, so it's a 5th aspect, and it's hard to see here, but it's there. And North Node in Virgo in the 12th quadrant, first whole sign. So early half of life was jam-packed with relationships. Second half of life, much more alone. First half of life, very creative, highly creative and imaginative. Second half of life, much more critical, alone, iconic, powerful, strong, and more intellectual, analytical, editorial. You guys are going to pause it for 1 second. Sorry about this. All right, I'm back. Okay. Also, it is incidentally humor coming from Aquarius, so he was known for his humor and his extremely well-developed writing, and that's this Saturn in domicile conjunct Mercury trine Virgo ascendant. Yeah, that gives it that incredible, like, the laborious quality that is just, it's extremely hard to work through, especially if you're an American and you don't understand the poor British way of speaking that's also old school. Right. In any case, where was I? All right, so North Node, second half of life is going to be much more alone, because, especially if North Node's in the first house or close to the first house, 12th house as well, solitary, but there's no personal planets here, right? All the planets are here. You have to understand that first half of life was going to be all about relationships, surrounded by people. Second half of life is about him. In isolation, there's going to be a 12th house element, and no personal planets here. And fifth house, writing, creativity, but Capricorn, very serious. Virgo, very serious, hardworking, right? All alone. It does work like that. Yeah. Yeah, you can see a lot of this times it's extremely literal, right? South node surrounded by personal planets means people. Can be surrounded by people. North node in the first and 12th quadrant, so first, 12th, isolation, alone, self, isolation, 12th house, no personal planets, definitely going to be alone in the second half of his life. What else? Take a peek at his draconic chart. So Sun and Chiron very close to the ascendant. So definitely iconic, right? First house is excellent for everything, but as well as making a person themselves have like this iconic quality. So it's not in his natal chart. That would be, even more prominent, but still in the draconic, definitely has an element, brings an element of that, being very strong in their identity and having a iconic quality. Virgo, excellent for writing, for editorial type stuff, analytical, perfection, high level writing. A full on Libran second house. Well, you could call it stellium, I guess, but it's South Node, Venus, Pluto, descendant. Main thing is that Venus is in domicile in Libra in the second house, so adding a lot of body. Mars in Libra here too, not in good dignity, but Venus is, so Venus helps all of these planets. Second house, the voice, sensuality, security, wealth or resources. So it's, for a writer, that's quite good. MC conjunct the domicile Saturn in Capricorn. Excellent. I mean, this is his career. Very, Saturn ruling the 5th and 6th house, creative, and 6th house, hard working and writing lots of stuff and editing and all that. Jupiter and Capricorn conjunct Mercury. Again, it's very good. Capricorn, well, Saturn's in Capricorn, so that's what we have to, Jupiter does not do well in Capricorn. It's debilitated. So, perhaps not a great relationship with religion, philosophy, perhaps depressed at times, but with Capricorn here, this is the 5th house. It is helping 5th house things, so creative stuff, Mercury stuff, writing, things like that. It is his ascendant lord, So benefiting the ascendant lord, the personal identity itself. Ascendant over this Mars in Aries, draconic ascendant. So, that's the third house lord. So, an identity as a writer, that's relevant. Uranus conjunct the MC in Gemini. So, social political awareness, rebellion, independence, as far as the public image, public view goes. But again, this is, draconic, so it's not really going to be super visible on the outer world, but it's still, still has an influence. And then Moon, Neptune in Cancer in the 10th quadrant, but conjuncting the 11th house cusp, so career success. And again, these are not conjunct anything, but Saturn's not in good dignity here, but yeah, oh well, it's not really conjunct anything. So in any case, let's see, main thing is this Sun and Chiron conjunct the ascendant, full second house with Venus Libra, MC Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, ascendant Mars. I think those are the main things. And the social, political, critique, that seems to be a recurring theme. All right, so that's it for Charles Dickens. Yeah, when you break it down, this chart is like extremely potent for drama, for creative writing, for very, very well developed, like lengthy novels that you have to like work your butt off to read. Saturn and Capricorn, right? Because Saturn is the taskmaster, and Saturn and Capricorn is just like the authority, the boss. Don't mess with Saturn and Capricorn. So anyway, that's Charles Dickens. I hope you enjoyed this. Please hit the like button if you did, and subscribe if you have not already. Leave a comment down below. Book a reading with me, macroastrology.com. That is my website. macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com is my email address. And let me know if you want to be on the list for my upcoming Sunday evening classes that are just gonna be free form. We're just gonna have fun and talk about astrology, and it'll be cool. All right, so that's it for now, guys. Thanks. Bye.